Hello everybody, my name's Tiffany, I'm the Tipsy Artist, and today we are going live to paint our beautiful beach scene. So this is an amazing painting and it's called "And So They Built a Life They Loved." So it's got a beautiful little beach house here and it's got this gorgeous ocean view, and we're going to learn how to paint all this. We also have a really awesome traceable back here. I want to make sure that y'all see that we have that. And let's see, speaking of let's see, put those on. All right, so let's talk about our supplies here that we have too. So we've got a little kit if you need it. Comes in really handy, has all the paint that you need. And it does come with the traceable and the graphite paper to do all that transfer work. And then we've got little brush set here, and then of course it comes with the canvas. And I've got all my stuff laid out, so I went ahead and put my paint out, and I just used regular paper plates, nothing fancy. And then just a bucket of water, or just put it in a cup, whatever you need. All easy. And then rags or paper towels. Hi Larry, welcome, welcome. All right, so to get started, I went ahead and did my trace early, and I left this kind of soft. You know, I'm speaking to both worlds, so you can use a Sharpie if you want to, which I want to do with my lettering, or you can leave it kind of soft and muted with the pencil trace and just leave it just like that, or you can reinforce it with the Sharpie, so that's up to you. And if you don't know what a Sharpie is, this is a Sharpie. I actually had some people ask me that, so I don't know if it's, I don't know why. I thought everybody knew what a Sharpie was, but I don't know. Maybe they're not as common in Europe, so seems like a European crowd that has asked me, what's a Sharpie? So, all right, so that's a Sharpie. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started by doing a nice sweep of the sky. And I'm gonna go ahead and start with one of my bigger brushes here. And this is my Big Daddy brush, all right? And then, hello, Sandy. Welcome, first time watching. Oh, but you've been to a show, yes. Awesome. And hello, Jonathan, welcome. Yes, if you've been to a show, those are fun. We're trying to do those again. It's a little, I don't know, it's a little bit challenging right now, but we have a few on the schedule. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and mix up some paint to work into my sky here. So I've got a nice big dollop of the white, and then I've got a little touch of the cobalt blue. So I just want to pick up a little bit of that too, and we'll just kind of mix that together. And this is just a really pretty light blue that we'll do. And then I also make sure that I keep those pure colors nearby too, and I'll go ahead and just kind of mix that back and forth. Yes, LOL the Daddy brush. Yeah, this is Big Daddy. Yes. Yes, can you imagine? We came up with that a long time ago, drinking wine and painting, and it just stuck. So we kept it. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just sweep this back and forth into my background. That's gonna be that first layer there. And again, this is just, you can use either a cyan blue or a cobalt blue. Both of those work really well. And as I push this back and forth, I'll just sweep all the way across. And sometimes I like to go ahead and push into the pure blue too, and just kind of push that back and forth there. And you'll notice I will go ahead and cover up my lettering, but I did it in Sharpie so that I knew it would just bleed right through. So that's okay. And I do that basically for time. So what I would recommend, you can actually use your traceable, but might be easier, just paint all this and then let it completely set up and dry, and then you can lay your traceable over the top and then do your lettering at the very end, or you can just freehand too. Yes. All right, so here we go. Just pushing it back and forth here. All the way across. Nice horizontal stroke. This is very, very soothing. And then I want to watch out for my little house here, so I want to go ahead and do a little bit of cut in. Because that little house is mostly white. It's got some We'll definitely have little touches of gray to it here in a moment, but it's mostly white. So I don't want to cover it up. Horizon line. And I do try to keep these strokes as fluid as possible, going all the way across the distance of the canvas, especially if you want this type of technique. So I don't want it to be choppy with like strokes like this, which will interrupt the paint. So this way, if I keep going all the way across, then I eliminate anything like that from happening. See how we see the brush stroke in? So I don't want that. I'm gonna go ahead and just take it again all the way across, and I won't lift off until I reach the other side. And same thing here, when you're starting on this side, I'll go ahead and start on the very end, and then just sweep it all the way across. There's another technique too with the background that's a little bit more of a pounce effect, and we can talk about that too. But we're just trying to get the base foundation here. Now I'm going to push in a little bit more of that white. And I can also do just little bits of that blue too. All right, so we have our beautiful sky. All right, so next up, I'm gonna go ahead and work in some of the water, and it's very similar to what we just did, but I'm going to make it a little bit of a deeper, darker blue. And I will go ahead and come in with my mama brush this time, and heavier hand with the blue, more blue this time, and just a little bit of white. And I'll go ahead and get right next to that line. And I've got a little section right there's like a little, there's a little like a rocky area in the water. So I'm gonna do a little bit of this gray because I don't want to lose that. So that's kind of right there. This is my little bit brush, by the way, my liner brush. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that little bit of rock. Make sure I can still see that. Then I'll come back to my mama brush, half-inch brush, half-inch flat. And I'll go ahead and start sweeping this across here. And I'm going to darken it just a little bit right next to the horizon line, so very carefully just add a teeny tiny little touch of the black, and that will darken up that blue just a little bit. I have a little touch of white in there too, so it kind of almost goes to a slate. So I'll do some firm pressure. That'll give me a nice thin line edge. And then I'll go ahead and take this all the way across. All right, then I'm gonna go ahead and rinse out and get a fresh mama here. I'm gonna switch back to just the blue and the white now, because I didn't want the water to continue to have those darker tones. I want to go ahead and like now start to brighten up a little bit now that we're a little bit farther away from that line. So now I'm just pushing into more of the blue and the white. And then to get really good coverage over the surface, I like to go ahead and just hold that brush more over to the side, parallel to the canvas. And then this water basically just kind of follows this line here all the way down. And then we'll just take it in sweeping strokes all the way across. And then as I work it in, I go ahead and push in a little bit of white to just kind of randomly alternate a little bit today. Hello, Keisha, how are you doing? I'm doing great. How are the painted baseball bats and balls coming along? All right, so just filling this all in. That dark blue. And then here in a minute, I'll remember to alternate in a few little pieces of white too. So I take the brush as close as I can get to the edge, and then I hold it more over to the flat side, and then I just pull it across. All right, so now I need to sweep in a little bit more of that white. And that adds a really nice touch in here. All right, so that's our beautiful water. All right, the next thing I'll work on is going to be that grassy area. And so I'm going to be starting with a little bit of like a taupe color for the base with some golden tones to it. All right, so I need, back to a bigger brush, I went ahead and gave Mama a bath, dried her off, and I'm going to go ahead and push into a big dollop of this white. And then let's do a little bit of the primary yellow and then a tiny touch of black. And that's going to give us a nice taupe color with some golden tones to it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and push this into this shape, this next shape that comes up. Just doing more of my color blocking at this point. And just smooth that out. Again, this is just more of like a foundational step here. And some shades that we'll start to work in next will be more of like some green shades, and then also some more golden tones, and then some gray too, because we have a little bit of some rocky areas in here too. All right, so I've got, let's see, a little bit more of the gold that will start to come in. A little bit of gold, yellow, let's see, this is yellow ochre. It kind of looks like mustard. right, so I'm going to go ahead and work this in. And let's do a little touch of black in there too. Kind of darken that up a little bit. It almost brings in like a little bit of gray. Still good. Still working on that. Okay, awesome. All right, so I pushed in a little bit of some black, a little bit of this yellow ochre, which looks like a gold color, and then a little bit of white. And I just want to keep sweeping this into the entire background. I'm going to do a little bit of some lighter gray in the front area here. So I'll pick up a little bit more white, a little bit of that black. Still using my mama brush. She is a 1/2 inch flat. And I'm alternating back and forth between a little bit of that white and then the gray. I'll do a few little like darker sections of the black, so I'm just barely touching into the black and then kind of pushing that down a little bit. So it's kind of a side to side little dragging motion that I do, just back and forth, and definitely kind of mixing it back and forth between a little bit of that titanium white and then that gray. And I also want to pick up a little bit of some green here in a moment. We'll be pushing that into the mix. So for that, I've got a bright yellow green and a cadmium green, so I'll push in a little bit of those too. So I'm taking that brush. It was loaded up with some of those lighter taupe colors that we were just working with. I didn't wash it off because I don't mind a little bit of that coming into the mix with the green, so now I'm just pushing into the cadmium green and then that bright yellow green. And I'm going to go ahead and do a little few sweeping strokes of that just right over here. Just kind of lightly place the brush on the side and then just kind of tap it a little bit and then lightly drag it across. So we've got like little tiny sections of a little bit of green that just kind of sprouts up over the top of this hill, little hints of it. Now I'm going back into that gold a little bit. Kind of lightly dragging it across. I still have a little bit of the wet paint there, so I get a nice soft blend in between the two. All right, so now I've got my cute little house to do. All right, so my house is just a super light gray. So it's basically, looks like it's an old white house. Oh, thank you so much. So I'm taking my little buddy brush. It's mostly white, but I want it to just be ever so slightly, just a tiny mix of gray with there. So I'm gonna mix a little bit of my gray that I already had mixed up. If you don't have any gray mixed up, it's just a super tiny amount of the black. But again, you want it to almost look white, but just super light gray. So I'll mix that up on my plate here first because I don't want it to overpower the house and get too dark. So here's little buddy, and I'm gonna go ahead and just push into the house here. And then where the little lines are, the perspective of the house, then I make that a little bit of a darker color. So I'm gonna come in with that darker gray in here. And I'm gonna go ahead and do the roof with that darker gray. Just like that. And then same here, this is a little bit darker, that shadow in there. And then I've got a little bit of just a teeny amount of red that's happening on the very top of the roof. So I'm going to come in with a little bit of some cadmium red here. And I want to make sure I've got a nice thin line edge. So I take that same little buddy brush, see it's really thin on the edge, go ahead and dip into that cadmium and just dip onto the top of the roof line. So just barely tap on the top of the roof line. All right. And then around this little edge, I want to make sure that the house is really defined here. So I'm going to go ahead and take just another light stroke of the darker gray, firm pressure here on the brush, get a nice thin line edge, and then I'll go ahead and just do a quick little outline. I want to make sure that this is showing up and it stands out. And then I go ahead and give it some weight here at the bottom, a little bit of a tap. Right, very nice. I'm gonna do a little bit more of some gray and just tap on the side of the brush, just right here on the edge. It's kind of like tapping out little dashes. And I do light little drags with it too, to kind of help blend it in a little bit. All right, so this is a really simple painting. It's so easy and fun. All right, so this should be dry now, and my lettering is just showing through, which is awesome. So that makes it really easy to come back in. And I would definitely, this is a very thin line font, so while you can certainly paint it on if you want, to me it is so much easier for beginners to use a paint pen or a Sharpie. And so I'm gonna go ahead and show you with a Sharpie today. All right, so I've got I'm just gonna follow it basically. I do want to make sure I'm not pushing my hand into wet paint. That would be bad. So good. Okay, I keep feeling like I get wet paint. It's never there, but I'm like, it's freaking me out. I keep feeling like it's wet. Yeah, you can see by all the tiny thin lines. It's like, whoa, lots of little lines. So it definitely helps to have a very fine point to do this. You also want to make sure your Sharpie's in good shape, because these are some very thin lines with this particular font. Yeah, it really is a little bit tacky right there, so I'm going to not be so heavy with my hand. Yay! This looks awesome! Very exciting! Okay, so this is a really beautiful, easy way to do this painting. And there's like two different styles really. And so I'm gonna tell you that if you're a beginner and you're intimidated by the painting process, definitely do this style. I think this way is much easier. I will also do a time lapse with a style that's a little bit more challenging, but basically it is just like doing everything that we just did, but I literally follow up with an entire another level of pouncing. And what I do recommend on that, I get really old brushes, and we don't sell these for good reason. We don't want to get complaints like, what in the world, why'd you sell me this? But basically if you just wear out an old brush, I don't know if a toothbrush would work necessarily. It would have to be a super soft, extra gentle toothbrush, but maybe that would be worth experimenting with. But basically we just have so many old brushes that I just have a ton laying around. But I basically will just work in the same exact colors that I just did, but just pretty much right over the top. So I'll give you a little preview of what I'll do, but definitely going to do that in a time-lapse painting. And so like for example here on the greens, I would just take this and I would kind of push into that lighter green and a little bit of that darker green, and see I just tap over the surface area. And then when it flows into a different color, then I could go to a little bit of that gold and then just kind of tap in right over the top. So it's just a lot more time, kind of put into that. But if you like a little bit more of that textural look, then you can go completely over the whole thing with a softly muted look. And it's just, again, taking a really bad old brush and giving it new life and purpose with this new painting technique. So again, just much more textural. Let me give you a little close-up of kind of the difference in that, how it does have a lot more texture to it. So if you do like the look of that, both styles are really beautiful. But again, either way, and I don't know, just a lot of fun. Either way, either very fluid, relaxing technique, or get out your frustrations by just pouncing it. Bob Ross always used to say, just beat the devil out of it. So sometimes we need to do that with everything going on, especially. All right, so that is our beautiful painting today. Again, super, super easy. And we have everything you need on our website, tipsyartist.com. And I will be doing a time lapse with this other technique a little bit later on too. So be looking for that as well. But y'all have a beautiful day, and I'll see you soon.